Hey there Wargamers, this is Justin from AMP Services, and this week I'd like to share with you guys a tactic I like to call the drive and dive. Now this is something that I started using about 5 years ago with my Space Marine army, and I've since adapted it to my Tau miniatures. Now while this video is going to be focusing on specifically the Breacher Squad from the Tau Codex, you can employ it with your army as well if you have similar miniatures or some type of transport. So for the first part of the drive and dive, your army is going to need some type of a transport. What we're going to be leveraging here is the fact that you can move your transport 6 inches and then deploy another 6 inches out with whatever you're carrying inside, in this particular case, the Breacher Squad. Because infantry are only able to move, in most cases 6 inches during the movement phase, by incorporating a vehicle, you're actually getting essentially a 12-inch move for them rather than the standard 6. On top of this, the vehicle itself gives you a way to move your infantry across the table very quickly and protect them if they draw fire, something they would not otherwise have if they were walking on their own. Now while the transport does provide some layer of protection for your infantry while you get them into position, this is not the main benefit of the drive and dive technique. The actual benefit is getting your infantry in position and allowing you to leverage whatever weapons they may have to great effect. In this particular photo, you can see that utilizing the drive and dive, we have been able to get our Breacher Squad within close proximity to a small tactical marine squad. This is a big deal for the Tau because these infantry want to be at close range, and the closer they get, the better their weapons are. So why do we want to get the Breacher Squad up close and personal with their targets? That seems a bit counterproductive for Tau. If they get engaged in melee, they usually crumble. Well, in the new edition, the Breacher Squad was added, and they are a dedicated up-close and personal unit. The reason why you want to use the drive and dive to get them up close is because you want to leverage their Pulse Blaster. Their Pulse Blaster has 3 different settings. If you're firing it from 10 to 15 inches away, it's resolved at Strength 4, AP-Assault 2. Now this is about average for most weapons in the game, with the exception that the armor piercing value is not that great. But we want to make that better. If you happen to get these guys up between 5 to 10 inches away from the target, this particular weapon is resolved at Strength 5, AP 5 now, Assault 2. And we're getting better, that's not too bad. But we want to maximize this. So if you can get this unit up to 5 inches or closer to the target, it's resolved at Strength 6, AP 3, Assault 2. Now this is a big deal because when you're talking about 40k, we're usually baselining everything off the Space Marine profile. If you have something that has an armor piercing value of 3, you're going through most everything in the game with the exception of heavily armored units, such as Terminators. So the fact that you can take this unit, drive right up next to a Space Marine tactical squad or something near the equivalent, or maybe something that's even worse, you're able to shoot at it with a very strong weapon and most likely go through their armor. This makes this particular squad very, very lethal at close range. So up to this point, we've basically discussed how to make the Breacher Squad extremely lethal and using it as an offensive component to your army. But what do you do once your Breacher Squad has been deployed, hopefully taken out a target, or perhaps they shot at the target and they failed? What happens then? How do you protect them? The first step in protecting them, in my opinion, would be to start with some upgrades for your Devilfish. The first of which I would recommend to be the Smart Missile System. By upgrading to a Smart Missile System, you're giving your Devilfish a 30-inch range, Strength 5, 4 shots, twin-linked weapon that it can fire. The Smart Missile System also does not need line of sight to fire at a target, and it also ignores cover, both of which add to the overall offensive capabilities of this particular upgrade. The next upgrade for the Devilfish that I would recommend is the Point Defense Targeting Relay. Essentially what this allows the Devilfish to do is fire overwatch shots. This is important because most vehicles are not allowed to do this. Additionally, this upgrade gives the Devilfish the Supporting Fire Special rule, something that most Tau models already have, but their vehicles do not. What this allows the Devilfish to do is to participate in overwatch shots when a Tau unit is declared as the target of a charge. Remember those weapons that I mentioned that were Strength 5, and in the Smart Missiles case, twin-linked? You betcha, those are allowed to be fired on Overwatch, and that's why they're so awesome for the Devilfish. Additionally, Overwatch shots are resolved as snapshots, which typically means that you have to roll 6s to hit. The fact that the smart missiles are twin linked gives you 2 chances with all 4 dice to get those 6s and to try and thin out a charging unit. The last upgrade that I would recommend for the Devilfish is the Disruption Pod. All skimmers have the ability to use the special rule called Jink, which essentially allows them to benefit from a 4-up cover save when taking fire. With the Disruption Pod, you modify all cover saves by +1. So your 4-up cover save from using Jink would now be a 3. If you're savvy with your positioning and utilize terrain to your advantage to try and maximize your cover, you may be able to get a cover save without having to Jink, which would mean you aren't suffering the negatives for having used it in the first place, and you would modify that cover save by additional +1. What this allows you to do is to maximize the survivability of a unit while you try to move them downfield to get them into position to fire. The Breacher Squad does not have too many upgrades that they can utilize to increase their survivability. What they can do, however, is upgrade one of the miniatures in the unit to a sergeant for the Tau that will be called a chasseur, and the sergeant is allowed to purchase drones. The drone that's best suited for increasing survivability would be the Guardian drone. This drone conveys a 6+ invulnerability save to the unit. The Breacher Squad, however, have a particular piece of war gear that's exclusive to them called the Field Amplifier Relay. This particular gear allows them to modify the Guardian drone's save from a 6+ to a 5+. So now that we've established what the drive and dive is, and how to outfit the Devilfish that's involved and the Breacher Squad, what can you do to increase the effectiveness with other models in your army? One particular miniature that I like to utilize with the drive and dive technique, specifically with the Breachers, is Darkstrider. This is an HQ from the Tau Codex, and he has a signature system called Structural Analyzer. This ability essentially allows him and his unit to treat the target as having a -1 modifier to their toughness. So if you get your Breacher Squad within 5 inches or less of the target and fire upon them, they would have a strength 6 attack versus whatever the target's toughness is, -1. So a good example of this being in good use is getting your Breacher Squad in firing range of a Space Marine HQ, which generally has a 4 toughness, and all of their attacks will be resolved against a 3 toughness. In the rules, if your strength of your weapon or your attack is double or higher than the toughness of the target, your wounds inflict instant death. Against Space Marines of a 4 with a Darkstrider attached to a Breacher Squad unit, you would be attacking them with strength 6 versus their toughness 3 now with that -1 modifier, essentially making all of your attacks cause instant death to most Space Marine models. Considering that the majority of the infantry in the Warhammer 40k game are toughness 4 or less, you can see where getting your Breachers within range 5, firing a strength 6 shot, is really effective. Considering that the units with a toughness above 4 are usually monstrous creatures and things of that nature, being able to utilize the Breachers with Darkstrider to increase your chance of wounding them and utilize your AP3 shots really helps take down some of those big targets that otherwise may have been a lot more resilient. The final unit that I would suggest utilizing in conjunction with your Breacher Squad, specifically if you're going for the drive and dive, would be the Pathfinders. Now, Pathfinders are really necessary for most Tau builds because of what they bring to the table. But when you consider what marker lights can do, they really add an edge for the Breacher Squad. So in essence, what you're looking to do here is to leverage your marker lights to A, increase the ballistic skill with which your Breacher Squads are firing, and or B, use those marker lights to strip the target of a cover save. So let's say, hypothetically, your Breacher Squad is rolling up on a Mawloc, which recently I had this happen. And the Mawlocs, it's kind of scary. It may not be the most brutal Tyranid miniature, but for the Tau, anything melee is scary. So I utilized my marker lights on the Mawloc, and I got 2. I used those 2 to increase the ballistic skill of my Breachers by 2, which put them at a ballistic skill 5. So my unit was within 5 inches of this Moloch. I fired 20 shots at ballistic skill 5, and I was wounding on, I think maybe 3s, which is absolutely devastating. Adding into the fact that the Moloch did not have a cover save, he literally was deleted from the table. Alright guys, that wraps up my explanation of the Drive and Dive. If you found this video particularly useful or liked what you saw, please subscribe below. Additionally, if you haven't already, please also like us on Facebook. Finally, I get paid to paint these models. It's how I make a living. So if you like the stuff you saw in this video, please also check out my website and request a quote. I'd also really like to hear from you guys. What did you think of this video? Have you used this tactic yourself? Did I encourage you to try something new? If so, sound off below. Let's talk about it. As always guys, I hope you enjoyed. Happy wargaming.